Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Cinefile, a podcast celebrating cinema one film at a time. Each week, my co-host Jake Biller and I break down a film, discussing anything from mise-en-scène to scenes you missed. Today, we talk about how the best way to spread Christmas cheer is singing loud for all to hear. Yes, that's right. We are talking Elf from 2003. This is the third of our four Christmas classics and our very final, what would you call it? Our very final segment
Yeah.
of the season. Um,
Hard to believe
Man,
there's
words
two.
are,
This episode and one more.
and then we are done. Then we are done until February.
Yeah.
Words are really hard. This is like the third time we recorded the intro because I couldn't remember. Um, but we're keeping it in, and this was my pick this week. This is the 20th anniversary of Elf, and for Jake and myself and our generation and onward, this is a Christmas classic. I mean, it through and through is. It was a fun rewatch today because I can quote this entire movie, but it was kind of a fresh watch because I hadn't seen it in a couple of years. It was almost one of those. You remember when you were like a teenager getting into high school and you're like, oh, I'd never watched SpongeBob because SpongeBob's lame. I was kind of like that with Elf for the past couple of years. It's like, oh, well, I've already seen Elf so many times. I know it's a Christmas classic, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to watch it. But then I was forced to watch it for this and because it's the 20th anniversary. And it's so good.
Let's be
It's
honest.
so good.
The only one that forced you to do this was you because it's your pick. So I don't know if
Well,
I'd say forced.
I forced myself to do it. I forced myself to do a lot of things.
I
It's
forced
called getting
myself to
out of
go.
my comfort.
I forced myself to go to work every day.
Facts.
Anyways,
Very facts.
that's
Anyway,
interesting. That's
go
interesting
ahead.
you say that because this movie, I had not seen this all the way through. I want to say until like 5, 6 years ago. Like I had seen
Really?
parts of this and like there was something about it that I don't know. It's just like it wasn't a go-to for me. There was something like and it's not like I watched it and didn't like it. It's just this is never something that I was like, "Oh, I need to see this." But I finally did because everyone told me I was batshit crazy because I hadn't seen Elf. Uh,
Yes. Yeah. And yeah. Yeah. You were
and
actually crazy for not
I
seeing that.
was, I was because this is hilarious. My mom even likes it. This has become like one of our favorites. We love watching together during Christmas time. I told you that we were doing it for the pod, and she was just like, "I'm singing, and I don't know the words, but I love you, I love you, I love you."
Yeah. I mean, this
Um,
movie has become a pop culture phenomenon.
yeah.
It is one of the most popular. I looked up today. Right now, it is the third most popular, at least this year, movie. Like a Christmas movie
Really?
to look up. It's number three on that list. And I mean, to kind of start off with some history, because look, a lot of the people that will be listening to this, um, know they've seen this movie, right? They know it inside and out. It's one of those things you watch every single year. So Will Ferrell, when he made this movie, he thought his film career was DOA when
Mm,
they did this because he didn't think it was going to land. And it has just permeated pop culture so much that it is one of his most popular movies.
yeah.
But he didn't think this was going to be any good.
Yeah. I know I read that James Caan, when he made this, was very kind of off-put by Will Ferrell's performance and thought he was ruining the movie by how over the top he was. But then once he saw at the premiere, he saw the whole thing put together. I guess the story goes, he went up to Ferrell and apologized. I don't know if he ever told him that he sucked on set, but
I don't
uh,
know. James
he
Caan.
might have done that.
He might have done that, like for real.
Also, rest in peace, James Caan. Um, is that within the last year he passed
I
away?
think so.
I think so too. If not,
I
it's
think so.
been just over a year since he passed.
Is
But
Bob Newhart dead?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I think old dude's still kicking.
I do too. Ed Asner's dead.
Yes. Yeah. Um, but anyways, James Caan like went up and, and apologized because he was like, it's perfect. And I think that really like is the success of this movie is you have Buddy who is like so over the top and he's so well balanced and contrasted against all these very kind of meh. I don't want to say meh. They're much more realistic and much more pessimistic, which is very counter to Buddy and really kind of sets up all the conflict in this movie. But yeah, I think this is I don't obviously it came out in 2003. I was a whole 5 years old, so I can't attest to what it was, how it was received at the time. But I think this movie, to your point about being one of the top three most popular, I think this movie has grown in popularity as it's aged. I think this is his has gotten incredible legs and has really kind of endeared itself to people looking back 20 years. And I think yeah, it's get better with every year. It's interesting how Christmas movies kind of do that, you know?
Yes, because I mean, we're talking next week. We're going to talk "It's a Wonderful Life," and
Yeah.
that movie, when it came out, it's very much a populist film.
Yeah.
And we will talk about populism next week. But yeah, it was not well received. People thought it was a dud. People were like,
Yeah.
this ain't great. And it's amazing how even like The Wizard of Oz was shown on TV every single year. And so it became this tradition.
Yeah.
And I think with Elf, right, it came out in 2003. That was, I believe 2005 was the biggest year for DVD sales ever.
Hmm.
So physical media, DVD sales, I mean, that's right near the peak of it. So I think a lot of people bought this, especially our generation. Now is very social media savvy, very tech savvy. And so it has just kind of grown. But it's interesting because this movie, and it's not because Peter Billingsley is also in this movie, because he is. Oh, what does he play? It's like Ming Ming, or it's like I it starts with an M, I think.
Really?
Yeah, but anyway, so he
I
plays
can't
like
think
one
of
of the
it.
chief builders. He's the one that goes like, "Oh yeah, you've got talent. You," and then he's like looking around, like, "Okay, somebody say something." They're like, "You can replace the AAA batteries in the smoke alarm."
Yeah.
Um, but it has this same kind of sincerity and innocence to it
Hmm.
that I think makes A Christmas Story great.
Yeah.
And we talked about that when we watched A Christmas Story. But I think here, you're right. This performance is very over the top. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. But I think where it succeeds, where a lot of other over the top performances might not, is there is a real sincerity to his performance. You never get the idea that this is a joke.
Yeah.
The way in which Will Ferrell plays it is straight, but it's over the top. And so while the situations that he is in and his worldview is funny, it's also genuine. You have to have that genuine kind of grounded element to an over the top performance so that it doesn't seem like it is unrealistic or unattainable or something that you're not able to understand. So
Yeah.
it's really, this performance is incredibly unique because it is so over the top, it's believable. And I think that's where this movie succeeds. And it has become this, it's not even a cult classic, this classic.
Oh yeah, very much a mainstream classic, I think. People, yeah, especially of our generation, like you said, love it. Because I
We've
think
been
of
playing
that.
it all month,
Yeah.
Netflix.
I
Yeah.
think
And
it's
it
kind of
sells out.
oh, I'm sure. I think
Yeah.
it's we've talked about a lot nostalgia and thinking back to Christmas of our childhood. I think that's part of the reason our generation loves it so much is we remember kind of when this not when this first came out, but the first time it was played on TV and that kind of stuff when it started making the rounds and kind of entering the Christmas lexicon, if you will. And so it's kind of become very linked to our generation. And you see a lot of talents in this, I think, that are very kind of synonymous with our generation in movies, right? You have obviously Will Ferrell, whose career really kind of took off after this. I mean, things like I can think of
Anchorman.
Anchorman, of
Him. Oh,
course.
I love that.
Yes,
Those are so good.
yes.
He'll
Ron
read
Burgundy.
anything that you write on the teleprompter.
You don't know how many times I think about that at work,
Yeah, because you
working in a
work. Yeah.
TV, when I'm running a teleprompter and the things that I like, the typos that get put in and people not pre-reading scripts and they just wrong things get read. Um, yeah, I think about Anchorman a lot, but he's really become a huge name, uh, in the course, in the 20 years since this movie came out. Um, you have, this is Jon Favreau, directed
Yep.
movie who our generation knows from The Mandalorian, kind of taking over that, and then obviously he's in
Happy Hogan in the MCU.
exactly.
Directed Iron Man, Iron Man 2.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting, like seeing these guys at the early kind of stages of the career, and honestly, like this is a really well directed movie when you think about it. Like if you kind of peel back the layers, like there's a lot of ways this could have gone wrong, I feel like. And so I think a big kudos goes to Jon Favreau for kind of keeping this on track, keeping this in the groove, and making this a successful movie.
Yeah, and you have Will Ferrell who plays this over the top but kind of um sincere character, and then you've got James Caan,
Mhm.
right, who many people know as Sonny Corleone from The Godfather, and he originally had auditioned for Michael, I think, but he's this rough and tumble kind of no nonsense actor, and you view him like that. He's almost, for our generation, almost like a Liam Neeson, right? Liam Neeson you take very, very seriously, but it's incredible to have this juxtaposition of Buddy and then Walter,
Yeah.
because just his face and the way in which he plays it so seriously,
Hmm.
that it's wild that this is his son,
Yeah.
but it kind of, there's that opposition. They're kind of fighting against each other as these two different worldviews that I think really, really works. And James having James Caan in this role uh, helps it tremendously, just because of who he is as an actor, who he is known to be as this kind of tough guy
Yeah.
in a lot of ways.
It gives it gravity.
Yeah,
It gives it almost is one of those instances where you bring in an actor who has so much, I don't want to say like baggage necessarily, but so much preconception, from an audience, that you don't have to do necessarily a ton of legwork in setting up the character, because people
right.
walk into this movie with having seen The Godfather and some of James Caan's other roles, and knowing them as this tough guy, this very serious, gruff personality. So seeing him in a business context, it's no surprise that he really doesn't give a shit about if kids like the book or not. He just cares if it sells.
Right, right. And so you have those two players. Then we've got somebody. I mean, but just the entire cast,
Yeah.
all of the supporting characters in this movie just nail it.
Yeah.
I mean, they really nail it. The guy from The Replacements.
Pays on love.
Yeah, he's so elite in this. He's
10
this is
a.m. Santa's coming to town.
he is so funny. He is so freaking funny. Like he's the funniest character in this entire movie, and I stand by that. Like every line of his, he goes, code word. Santa's got a brand new bag, but he goes, hey you. It's like, no shopping on your break.
That was originally
He
supposed to be
goes,
Wanda Sykes.
wait, what?
Yeah, I read that it was originally supposed to be Wanda Sykes, and if you look closely, the name tag still says Wanda.
I saw that. I did see that, and I was like,
Yeah,
okay.
because
And it was
she backed out by the time that they already had the costume made, and he wanted to keep the name tag.
that. Oh man, there's lore there
Yeah.
now. There's like elf lore. No, his performance,
Yeah.
just as this no nonsense guy. Again, we have another no nonsense character, which obviously makes sense in the context of the film because we're talking about bringing Christmas spirit back.
Yeah.
But juxtaposing him again against Will Ferrell works just so well because he's so serious, and Will Ferrell is so not.
Yeah.
And he goes like, what did he say? Something was like, singing is my favorite. He goes, make work your favorite. Work's your new favorite. And I was just like, he's such a vibe. Like, it's not even funny. Like, I relate to him so well.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I was just watching this movie, and it's the sincerity. It's the sincerity. Yeah. I think it's also, I mean, they did a lot of practical effects. There's almost like a timeless quality to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, this feels like it's very aware of the genre, if you will, of Christmas movies that have come before, right? You see the sequences at the North Pole where they have like the claymation animals and the snowman or whatever. That's a direct reference to the Rankin and Bass claymation shorts from the 60s and the 70s. You would know as, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, The Year Without a Santa Claus. Santa Claus.
Which one's the one with the heat miser?
Year Without a Santa Claus.
Yeah, that movie's cursed. We're never doing that movie.
Oh, I love it.
That movie is so cursed. I can't.
I made Tanner watch it. I made Tanner watch it the other day because it is one of my favorites. I really enjoy that. But we're not talking about this movie. Talking about this movie. But obviously, it's very much harkening back to that and kind of a tribute to that, which I thought was an interesting touch. And really kind of the approach to the North Pole and that way. And this movie, it's so interesting because when you look at Buddy, like he is such a Christmas fanatic and so over the top, but the rest of the North Pole isn't like that. Like even Papa Elf, like played by the legendary Bob Newhart.
What a great casting.
Oh my God, yes. But like Bob Newhart is like trademarked for like understated, funny performances. So to have that be Buddy's adopted dad when it's played by Will Ferrell, who's known for over-the-top funny performances, it's just such an interesting quality. But even like Santa and the other elves, they don't have this explosive, if you will, personality that Buddy has. And so it's really, looking at this as just like not even just a Christmas movie, but a movie. It's really about Buddy trying to find his place, right? I would say the main goal of the film is, or the stated goal of the film, or the story is about trying to get people to believe in Christmas again and restore Christmas spirit to a pessimistic world. But I think a deeper part of the story is Buddy trying to find out who he is, right? Because he doesn't feel, even before he finds out he's adopted, there's this sense that Buddy feels like he doesn't belong, obviously, because he's a normal-sized person in elf world. Right. And you talk about practical effects. So much of that was done with forced perspective.
Which is wild, like, because you try and catch it.
Yeah.
It's like, so well done. I don't know if you're the same way, but like, if I watch this or if I watch Lord of the Rings, which also, I mean, Lord of the Rings came out in 2003, too. Yeah, one of them did. Maybe that was Return of the King, or Two Towers. I don't know. Anyway, at the same time, you watch it, you try to catch the forced perspective, but it is the hardest thing with forced perspective is to keep the dimensions in every shot, because it's weird and different in every shot. But at the same time, it was so well executed.
Yeah,
that you were just absolutely. I mean, you couldn't tell. Really, and and so you've got this really interesting decision made by Favreau and Ferrell, who apparently didn't actually like each other all that much on set, to have this over the top character. And we start out in the North Pole that is very harkening back to the 60s kind of milieu, the mise en scène of it being very much 60s. And then you go into, boom, New York, right? And so you have this again, this juxtaposition of this almost this white, this clean, bright, happy place, and then New York City.
Yeah. The
And so
dirtiest
it's
place on
all
earth. One of the.
one of the. So it's all about these these different perspectives being pushed against each other.
Mm-hmm.
That's what this movie is all about. And I think one of the reasons why this works, especially for a Christmas movie, is because we as a society have built up the idea of what Christmas is supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Chestnuts roasting on an open fire. What the hell does that even mean? But you've got chestnuts roasting, you've
Pretty
got
straightforward. You roast some nuts on an open fire.
who the hell roasts nuts? Like, oh, you know what I want to do today? You know what I'm gonna go home and do? I've worked 8 hours. I need to roast some nuts. I need to, because I really want to eat nuts, but I want them roasted. Like, obviously, roasted peanuts are great. We don't need to talk about that. The chestnut specifically, you have to freaking open a damn chest to try and get that thing open. Anyway, but my point is, we have this hallmark idea of what Christmas is, and then in reality, I've said it multiple times, my everyday is no different. It's no different. What I'm doing right now, I do every single week, which may be part of my issue, but that's like a whole nother discussion. But so we have real life, and then this hallmark version of Christmas that we can never live up to. And those are kind of juxtaposing and pushing back on each other as well. So I think one of the reasons why this works is that it has this interesting balance. And what you do is you take Buddy and you drop him into New York City and this kind of more grim world, but it's not overly grim.
No, it's just very, I think, open and straightforward of like, New York people think about Christmas because of things like Miracle on 34th Street and going to see Santa at Macy's and Santa coming down the street in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade.
The Rockefeller tree.
Yes. It's very, New York has become very kind of like almost mythical in a way of like people want to spend Christmas in New York. But for people that live there, I would imagine that, like you said, the everyday doesn't necessarily change.
Right.
And it's it's you see people like, Faison Love and Zooey Deschanel, people that work at Gimbals who are like, they only seem to be enjoying Christmas because that's what their job needs to do. They need to play up Christmas big because that's how they sell toys and products, and that's how they make their money. And that's how they get their paycheck. And so it's like, it's all these people that, I don't want to say hate Christmas or anything. I don't think Walter's a big fan of Christmas, but I would say pretty much everyone besides Walter like doesn't hate Christmas, but it's just are kind of over the hustle and bustle of Christmas and real life not being this idealized thing that's presented in movies, in ads, in commercials, what have you. They're kind of over the being told like, oh, this is what Christmas is supposed to be, but that's not what real life is for them during the Christmas season. But I think where Buddy's important in all these characters' lives is helping them discover that there is Christmas cheer all around. You just have to seek it out. You have to embrace it. You have to look for it. Right? You can't just wake up the day after Thanksgiving and be like, all right, I'm going to feel like Christmas now.
Yeah.
That's not how it works.
Congratulations. We salute you. But that's not how real life works.
And I think that's why you see, people have all kinds of holiday traditions, whether that's with family, whether it's with friends, going to see, holiday light displays, going to visit Santa, doing Black Friday shopping, all different kinds of holiday traditions surround Christmas. And I think is doing those things help us get in the Christmas spirit, right? You don't do those things because you're in the Christmas spirit. I think you do those things to get in the Christmas spirit, if you will. And I think that's what Buddy brings to all the characters he meets in New York City, is this realization that, okay, yes, Buddy is crazy and wacky over the top. That's not realistic. But he's showing them the Christmas cheer that exists all around them. Buddy doesn't use magic or anything to create Christmas. He doesn't
Right.
use any special powers or what have you. Okay, yeah, he can survive on no sleep and decorates really fast. But other than that, like there he's very much a human character who kind of comes to bring Christmas and help people rediscover Christmas all around him. And I think you see that with obviously with Walter, but also um, with Zooey Deschanel's character Jovi. You know, I think Buddy really kind of latches on to her because he hears her singing Christmas songs, yes, in the shower, and that's cringe and weird, but that goes over Buddy's
That
head.
is freaking. That's clowning. That is clowning that he just was like just sat. That is
It's
anyway.
like, oh, I'll just go in here while she's showering. There's nothing wrong with that.
Logic 100 right
Logic zero. But
there.
the fact that what I'm trying to get here, the fact that he hears someone else singing Christmas songs, right? To you are started the episode quoting that line. Best way to spread Christmas cheer is singing loud for all to hear. And so he
Right.
hears someone singing, and he is very drawn to that. Like, oh, someone else loves Christmas like I do, and I think that's why he's drawn to her, and I think she's drawn to him in a way. Even though the relationship really doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense.
It makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah.
That makes absolutely no sense.
Kudos to Buddy for
Yeah.
for pulling Jovi because whew, as
Yeah.
they
I don't
say,
know how that happened.
he outkicked his coverage, as they say.
Yeah, he really did.
But I think you're supposed to believe in the story context that Jovi is drawn to Will Ferrell in the context of she has this, you know, whether it's from her childhood or what have you, has this still kind of love of Christmas that's become jaded or has become lost in the hustle and
Depressed.
bustle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think suppressed inside her. She's kind of not gotten in touch and is not open really about her love of Christmas, right? She only sings when she thinks she's alone. All this to say, I think that's just a really good example of when you really dig into this movie about how the whole message about Christmas and Christmas around us and celebrating Christmas and how not everything is going to be like a Christmas movie.
Right.
That's not what you're supposed to feel. But it's even if you don't, there are realistic ways and realistic instances where you can get in the Christmas spirit, right? And you're not alone in that.
Yeah. And because basically, you know, I'm sitting here and I'm trying to figure out there are hundreds of Christmas movies. There are hundreds of Christmas movies. Hallmark makes a whole entire damn business out of Christmas movies. And they all look the exact same. That's a whole nother thing. So why does this movie, out of all of them, a 20-year-old, you know, film that was made on a shoestring budget, that was kind of Will Ferrell just acting a fool, why does that stick out in people's minds and say, hey, this is a Christmas classic? And I think you're right. I think to kind of distill our conversation here, it's about perspective. It's about how you see the world. And you take these two opposite forces. You take real life and you take, you know, the magic of Christmas, and you kind of push those together. And the catalyst really is Buddy, as somebody that can go between.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think the purpose of this movie is to say that you can create joy no matter your circumstances. And even if you think that Christmas is terrible or you think something is terrible, if you allow somebody else, it's like go with me on this. Star Wars.
Okay.
I'm convinced that if anybody watches Star Wars with me, they won't hate it. Now, I'm not saying they'll love it, but they won't hate it. And the reason why is because I love it. Because I love it. And they appreciate the fact that I love it. It's like that with Buddy. You may not love Christmas, but you see how much Buddy loves Christmas, and you start to kind of enjoy it as well.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of mentality is something that we don't see very often.
Yeah.
People I think sometimes are afraid to say what they like or really push on issues like that because of the way society is run, and we are afraid of offending people, which there's merit to that, and I'm not saying there isn't. But my point is that this movie works because Buddy loves Christmas so much that it's causing us to love Christmas.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to talk about before we go into Rosebud and Thorn, the score to this movie is absolutely insanely good.
It is good. I've always so I've talked about how I haven't seen this like all the way through until in the last few years. It's always bugged me a little bit because it reminds me very much of the Polar Express. The main themes are very similar.
Yeah.
And so like in my ear when I hear da 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 da, which is how both the main themes for those two movies start. I hear the Polar Express da 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 instead of
that's also a banger.
Yes, instead of this
is that
movie,
Hans Zimmer?
goes, I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and look. I'm not positive. But this movie is da 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 da. But
that's Humming Time with Ben and Jake.
Two people who love music who I'm sure that just sounded terrible. Anyway.
John Williams, call us.
Please. Back to my point.
Wait, please.
It's always kind of bugged me that, like, just on a personal level, that they sound so much alike. But obviously, this came first. And yes, this is so good. It is such a good score. It is very, it's very heartfelt, and I think endearing and honest in a way.
Yeah, and I mean, you listen to it now, and you're like, "That's Christmas."
Really?
I mean, people sleep on scores so much, and Jake and I love movie scores a ton, but that kind of, I mean, that captures the essence of the movie in such a unique way.
No.
And it's something that if you play it, you're like, oh, that's Christmas music. 2, that's from Elf. And 3, it gets me in the mood for Christmas.
Yeah. I think it's
Christmas.
We've talked a lot about score on this podcast before, right? Score is very much kind of the unspoken emotional language of a movie. And I think the score really especially kind of resonates within you and makes you, even if you're not a Christmas person, I think you feel the twinge of Christmas pulling at your heart a little bit, right? You feel the spirit of Christmas in a way that can't be explained in a line or explained in a scene. Music is so bound to Christmas, right? Christmas and music is something
Absolutely.
that goes back to, goes back hundreds, if not thousands of years. Music has been tied to Christmas. And so I think there's just a really special quality that this score taps into that is really able to capture the spirit of this movie, the spirit of Christmas, and communicate that to the audience in a way that nothing else could.
Yeah, and that I think also is standout, and what makes this movie. I mean, none of the other scores I can't think of, of these Christmas movies that we've talked about. And now, granted, we've only talked about 3, but this one stands out as one of the most well-known Christmas scores maybe ever. Polar Express is another one, absolutely, that deserves its flowers, but I can't really think of other than those two. I mean, those two really bring the joy of the season. So I just wanted to mention that before we go into Rosebud and Thorn, because I mean, I was like listening, I was like, damn, this is good. This is really good. I mean, this really brings it. Like whoever did, I think his name was John something. Not Williams. But bro brought his freaking A game to this. Like this movie, for its budget and the concept and how kind of outlandish it was, he did not need to go this hard. Like he went so freaking hard in the paint with this. Like it's not even funny.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to mention that. Now's the time where we are going to jump into Rosebud and Thorn. As always, Jake, I'm passing it off to you. What are your Rosebud and Thorn for Elf?
So got a few roses, got one bud. I don't have any thorns this week. This movie is just too good. To get into roses, Will Ferrell, James Caan, and Zooey Deschanel are all three going to get a rose performance-wise from me. Like we've talked about, Will Ferrell just strikes this perfect balance in his character. He's over the top without making it go too far. He walks that very tight line there that is so central to this movie. So I have to give a rose to him. James Caan and Zooey Deschanel, kind of similar performances in that they're both Christmas pessimists, but I think there's an interesting distinction between the two of them. James Caan, I think, is a character who has forgotten the love of Christmas, and I think Zooey Deschanel's character has more of a suppressed love of Christmas. But I think they both bring really good performances, and I love the way they interact with Will Ferrell's character, and he kind of brings out their love of Christmas that is inside of them. So roses to all three of them. I'm going to give a rose to the screenplay by David Berenbaum. Apparently, this was his first professional screenplay ever.
Really?
Yeah. And dude
Bro
dropped.
kicked it out of the freaking park.
I
What a
mean,
legend.
the dialogue in this is so funny. The jokes are there. They land. The story is well constructed. I think the story is able to pay homage to a lot of things, but also be very original. And I just, like I kind of talked about earlier, I like how this kind of intersects with the audience and this kind of idea of the idealized Christmas were presented in so many movies and media, and then the realistic Christmas we experience. I think this movie is very aware of that, and is a key part for the audience to bring into the film. So I think that's really a very smart move by the screenplay and how it taps into that. So I'm going to give there, and then also Jon Favreau, the director. I talked about this a little bit earlier, but this could have easily been gone off the tracks. The jokes would have been too corny. But this again just walks that very fine line that makes it such a memorable and earnest and funny Christmas classic. So those are my roses there. And my one bud is really stupid, but I was like, I have to find something to say about this movie. I can't be a complete shill. And so my one bud is there is no way in hell that guy Buddy meets in the mailroom is 26. He is like, I think you texted me, he said, this guy isn't 26, he's 46.
Yeah, I looked it up because he goes, "Yeah, I'm 26." I'm like, "You're young, you're young." It's like, was Wanda Sykes supposed to play him too? Like, like, who is this guy? It's like
Not
ridiculous.
26.
Yeah, because yeah, that was like my butt too.
He looks like a past president of the Hells Angels.
I was like, bro, how much coke did you do? Like,
He forgot 10 years.
yeah, he did. I was like, maybe 36, maybe 36, but you're not. If he's 26, damn, I'm like 16. It's like ridiculous.
If he's 26, we're gonna age a hell of a lot in the next year.
I know. I'm scared. But yeah, 2 more months and then boom, I'm gonna look like him. For me, my roses, I'm gonna give a rose to the score. I think the score is spectacular. It's something that is very, very memorable, and it just kind of gets me in the Christmas spirit. Will Ferrell, great performance, just a spectacular performance. I don't think he's too over the top. I think he does it well. I'm gonna give a rose to Faison Love because that dude is freaking hilarious as the manager Wanda or whatever. I mean, he's so funny in this. He's so funny. Work's your favorite. I was like, he just plays it so straight. He's great. I also am gonna give a rose to the screenplay. I don't think it's perfect. I actually have a bud for that, but it does a great job of, there's a believability. There's verisimilitude in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
You actually believe that, okay, this is what elves think and this is like what an elf is doing coming into the real world. So I there's that verisimilitude that I really like in that I thought was very good. Um, James Caan is also going to get a rose from me. I think he plays it really, really well. Some days you think like, would he really put up with this and actually go for this movie? And he did, and he liked it. He really liked it. Um, so those are going to be my roses. My buds, that guy's not 26. And then also, while this is his first screenplay, I felt it went a little quick.
Okay, I see that.
This movie, the type of movie, I think it's a brisk hour and 27 minutes. Like, okay, I get that. I appreciate the pace, but at the same time, I feel like Buddy doesn't do enough for me to be in the Christmas spirit, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like there is a maybe hour 50-minute movie in here that might do a little bit more emotional legwork. Now, I hindsight's 2020. Maybe it won't be such a classic if that happens. But I mean, I am a sucker for story, and I just felt like it happened really, really quick in a way that had me struggling to believe it. And I have no thoughts. I have absolutely no.
I definitely get that about the story. I think looking at this as the third movie we've done in this series, they've all been kind of right around the same runtime. I think kind of plus or minus 10 minutes.
Yeah, pretty much.
And I definitely feel like this movie has the most story to it of the three we've watched. So I can see that. I definitely get that and wanting. I would be opposed to more movie, put it that way. If this was a little longer, I wouldn't be upset about it, probably.
Now, I'm not saying I need this to be Killers of the Flower Moon, but that would be rough. Now is the time where we are going to be talking about who we think we are. And Jake, as always, I'm passing it off to you. Who do you think I am?
I think you are Jovi, played by Zooey Deschanel. Because you have self-admitted this, that you are not a Christmas fanatic by any means.
No.
I think you do enjoy Christmas. I think you just like to be kind of pessimistic about it. I think like deep down you really enjoy Christmas.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've been exposed.
If I
no,
I think in a different stage of life you'll enjoy Christmas more.
Probably.
I think you're really going to enjoy seeing your kids open up Christmas presents on Christmas morning.
Yeah, they're going to love all the Star Wars stuff they get. Well, okay, and this is the thing I've always said, like, real talk for a moment. I'm somebody that I don't put the date of my birth on like Facebook because I want people to actually know. But at the same time, I love a text being like, "Hey, happy birthday," or I never say I want anything, but I want you to get me something. I'm like a woman. From my understanding, that's what women are like. Or like a surprise party. I'll never say I want a surprise party, but I want you to just do it, and then just have me do it, and have me enjoy a surprise party. It's those things that I'll never say I want because I think they're stupid, but I kind of want them anyway. And I guess Christmas is like that, where I'll never say that I love Christmas, but if Christmas were to be like elite, that'd be great. That'd be great. If there was somebody to kiss under the mistletoe, that would be great. If I could go to the Kris Kringle, whatever the hell market, that would be great. If I could afford presents, that would be great. If there was snow on Christmas, that would be great. But these things don't happen. So yeah. And then for you, I don't know if it's just you're Bob Newhart. Because that dude's an absolute goat, but I just know that you appreciate his kind of humor, and you would take in a a baby that is not a human.
100%. 100%.
Yeah. And he's yeah, I call this, yeah, the I don't know. You give off that dad vibe of your kid would be like Shaq tall or something, like super, super tall, and you'd have to deal with him. But
I hope
Bob
so.
Newhart, Bob
Early
Newhart is
retirement.
yeah.
Give me some of that
But
Otani money.
right. NIL money.
There
Um,
you go.
yeah. But Bob Newhart is just a classic dad in this. So I have to say that you're him. Now we're gonna talk about some closing thoughts. Jake, what are your final closing thoughts on Elf?
Final thoughts on Elf. This is kind of a different movie for me than the previous two we watched because this has probably been the most recent of the movies I've been introduced to. Like I said, hadn't really seen Elf all the way through till a few years ago, but it has quickly found its way into my heart. It's got a lot of heartfelt moments to it, a lot of humor to it, a lot of really good performances in it, and I think just on this rewatch, understanding kind of how this intersects with the Christmas season and how it intersects with the audience and what people bring into watching this movie, the things they bring into it emotionally, I think is really, really interesting. I think it's really kind of a mark of how good this movie is and why it's become so endearing after 20 years. So I'm really glad we picked it. I'm glad we talked about it. And yeah.
Yeah. For me, this is a quintessential Christmas film. I think it is endearing, it's heartfelt, it's funny, it's clever, and it is of, it's 20 years old, but it's of my generation. And
Yeah.
so when I think back on this film, I think it's an all-time classic. Even at 20 years. I mean, this movie will be an all-time classic probably forever. But it's very fun, very funny, great performances, great score. So this is definitely one. If you haven't checked it out, which I don't know how,
Where
but I
have you
guess
been?
Jake, yeah, I mean,
Hey,
up until a few years ago,
even I figured out that I needed to see this.
yeah,
Even I.
that this should be on your Christmas watch list for sure. But the question is for you folks. What do you think? Have you seen Elf? Is this your top Christmas movie? Top 5, top 3? Let us know your ranking, your thoughts in the comments down below. If you like this video, hit that like button and ring that bell with the subscribe button to get all notifications on upcoming content. We have one more for you next week. We are doing It's a Wonderful Life. Great, great film. I'm very excited to have a discussion about it. Make sure to follow us on social media. Follow the Cinephiles. Follow Jake, myself. All the links are right there as always. But until next week, thanks so much for watching. For Jake Biller, I'm Ben Sparrow. We'll see you back here next week. And cut.